Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Florence Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. My name is Sally Wantz. It's good to see you. I take this moment to acknowledge that we stand on the traditional land of the first people of Florence, the Sayusla Indians, past, present, and future. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the Sayusla Indians. We're going to open today with singing Spirit of Life. Ray's going to cue it up. We've got folks here. We're ready to sing Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the
So in announcements today, we do have a Zoom gathering today. It will be hosted by Jay Gutler, who's behind the camera today, our lovely Jay Gutler. We invite Reverend Elizabeth to join us, and whether she's there or not, we're going to continue to talk amongst ourselves to continue to share our stories. Fair enough? Okay. Next week, we're delighted to have our own Linda Coulter-Burge present her talk titled, The Stories We Tell Ourselves. Oh my. Remember that our annual business meeting is scheduled for June 6th. It will start at noon, probably last an hour, maybe an hour and a half at the most. I can't imagine it'll go that much longer. Invitations will be going out shortly to join us on Zoom. And also those who receive ballots in the mail, you need to return those items that are sent to you in the self-addressed stamped envelope so we get it on or before 5 p.m. on June 5th. I think we have a deadline of June 1st, but I have a feeling we might get some on June 5th as well. Are there any other announcements from anybody else here? No? Well then, okay. Then I'm going to invite Raymond to come forward as we light our flame here in our chalice, and give you an opportunity to light a candle in your home as well. These words come from Jennifer Kitchen, and it's titled, Come Sit by Our Fire. Come sit by our fire and let us share stories. Let me hear your tales of far-off lands, wanderer, and I will tell you of my travels. Share your experience of the holy with me, worshiper, and I will tell you of that which I find divine. Come and stay, lover of leaving, for ours is no caravan of despair, but of hope. We would hear your stories of grief and sorrow as readily as those of joy and laughter, for there is a time and a place and a hearing for all the stories of this world. Stories are the breath and the word of the Spirit of life, that power that we name love. Come, for our fire is warm, and we have seats for all. Come again, and yet again, come speak to me of what fills your heart, what engages your mind, what resides in your soul. Come, let us worship together. Very rich words. Catherine, would you like to come forward and share our joys and concerns? I'd be glad to drop some shells for you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm going to leave my script right there.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. This is the time of our service for joys and concerns. We do this to remind ourselves that we are all one. And being all one, we can uplift each other and the world around us with our kindness. I don't mean this in a Pollyanna way. I'm saying the truth of who we are is one beingness, one connective vibration. And this is a life force. One thought in the loving direction can have a ripple effect vaster than we may ever realize. So I'm going to start with a joy. I had the honor of blessing the ashes and saying a few words for Bruce Yelly, Archie Yelly, Max, Cap, and Brownie. 3 wonderful furry companions last Sunday. I mentioned it last Sunday, or I mentioned it last taping, but I actually hadn't done it yet. Unbeknownst to me, it seems that Bruce told his wife that he wanted me to do this service for them and the blessing. And I was humbled and grateful, and I knew he was talking to me the whole time, encouraging me. So let's please have a few shells in there.
I got the prettiest ones.
Okay.
Okay.
I know that Barbara McLean is moving temporarily to Minnesota 3 months, correct?
It's about 3 months.
3 months to recuperate with her sister. And she's doing really well, I believe. Okay. So let's put one in for her.
Okay. She might be having shoulder, I think her right shoulder surgery. So
Okay.
she'll be there healing.
All right, great. And Barbara, we miss you, and I miss you in my water aerobics class, and hope to see you again there, splashing around as we do. And Joni was sighted walking in the Fred Meyer after successful brain surgery.
Wow.
How about that? That's pretty soon. I mean, that was only a couple of weeks ago.
That's pretty good.
So, wow, we are grateful and blessed to have her on this planet and in this town. So I have one concern, and that's for my husband Steve. He's having these vertigo attacks that are like worse than anything I've ever seen, where he can't get up out of bed and all these other things. So we're waiting for a referral for a doctor, but you know how that takes, well, you know how that is around here. But then he gets well for a while and then again. So please send him a prayer. He's a very active guy. And this is one of those things like, what are we talking about here? I can't do everything I want to do,
Yeah.
So please.
Does that mean he's home a lot more now?
Yeah, well, yes.
Is that concerning?
No. He's always home, but he's out there working around the house, so. Anyone else, please? Anyone have anything, a joy, a concern? I have a joy. Xana is back.
Oh.
Yay! Yay! And she's sitting right there in front of me. She's my movie buddy. We go to the movies together, among other things.
And they're open again.
Yeah, I know, and they're open again. Yes. Okay. All right. I have a few words from the UU magazine this year. First, let's make a shell for everyone that we don't know about. Everyone, maybe 2. One for all the joys we don't know, and one's for all the concerns we don't know.
Okay. Whatever you say, Catherine.
Thank you. Because we are there for you. You're included in every thought, every loving thought, every word we have. You're here, whether we know about the specifics or not. So I have a couple things, like I said, for the UU magazine, a thought that really got me to just sit and think about it. Have you ever noticed a way that you are different from someone else, and you let that stop you from getting any closer? If so, you've hit the bias wall. It's very subtle, but it can make us forget that each person matters as much as another, and each one matters to the rest of us. What could a door thought? You know, what could a thought that could open a door of bias? A friendly smile, a question, a handshake, now that we can maybe shake hands again pretty soon, something. What can you do when you notice in that subtle way that we all do, that we go, oh, I'll get close to her or him, but I don't have time for that one. Think about why. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Really appreciate your thoughts on that. And the UU magazine, I haven't gotten my copy yet, so I'm glad you got yours and found that. We've got a reading today, and I've invited Xana to come forward with today's reading. And it's pretty incredible words that she's going to share. So, Xana?
Thank you, Sally. This is so interesting because this is like a conversation that I had with two other people recently, these same kind of ideas. It's really, really nice. This is entitled Words Matter by Reverend Carol Sissel, who is the settled minister of the UU Fellowship of Center County in State College, Pennsylvania. This just as easily could have been written by any one of us at Truth. So we need to listen up here. I love it. She says, if I made a list of every single Unitarian Universalist congregation I have served, visited, or worshiped at, they would have a few things in common, including the use of these words. Perhaps on the front of the order of service, or scrolling around the home page of their website. Maybe they've even emblazoned them on a rainbow-colored banner hanging in the sanctuary. Wherever they are, more often than not, the words are proudly combined with another expression that has been embraced in everyday UU vernacular. All are welcome here. The congregations, churches, and fellowships on my list all have one or more of these words proudly on display. I know why they are used so freely. Initially, I feel embraced by them. There's a warmth of recognition when my eyes first capture their sight. A sense of being acknowledged and valued. It moves from my heart to my head, and then a smile settles on my lips. My heart blooms. I feel like the welcome table has been set for me, and I'm eager to pull up a chair.
Yeah.
All of this takes place in an unmeasurable instant. In the next moment, it is tempered. I remember past experiences and unconsciously recalculate and measure my response. The petals of my heart close a bit, protecting the delicate stigma and stamen that lie within. Fear of disappointment rises within me like the sun. I love those words. I want what they promise, but I have been repeatedly disappointed. It is simply not enough to print them on an order of service or in a newsletter. They must have meaning and intention at their core. A desire for multicultural worship is wonderful, but it will not flower if that seed of yearning is not nurtured by a commitment and a plan. Longing for diversity of race, gender, or age is only a beginning. It calls for caring and creative programming. Our congregations are primarily white, female, and over 60. If we are to serve into the future, that must change. I believe that we can transform first ourselves and then the world. I am injured repeatedly when we do not. When we use words just for the sake of using them, I am hurt. Without true resolve, planning, and measurable goals behind the things I see, my trust and hope are broken anew. Why does it hurt? Every time I see those words, I feel the possible revival of Unitarian Universalism germinating in the warm soil of spirit. I've seen the transformation begin to take place in Washington State, Washington, D.C., and California. Congregations in Oklahoma continue to push our faith forward. So yes, I am hopeful. Hopeful, but wary. On too many occasions and in too many places, these words and the ideals which they carry are given lip service. Words matter. They lift and hold us. They illuminate the future and shower us with possibilities. When misused, they hurt. Verbal cuts and abrasions sting. Language leaves wounds that become scars. Words matter. If you and your congregation are not ready to meet the promises you craft and then share with the world, stop publishing them. Please don't invite me to sit at your table unless you have a warm, satisfying meal to serve. It doesn't have to be a gourmet feast. A potluck is fine. The souffle may only have risen half-pay. The cookies might be burned on the edges. The pasta can be overcooked. That's okay. I'm starving. What it must be is fulfilling, real, made with love, and ready to be eaten. Remember, I believe what you say and write. Words matter. And so it is.
And so it is.
Words do matter. And I apologize in advance if any of my words have ever not been true to my soul. I apologize now. It was never my intention. Words do matter. Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Elizabeth, for providing this reading opportunity for us. And thank you, Zana. That was beautifully done. So, today's musical interlude is titled, How Could Anyone? And I love this song. Jeff Lovejoy has pre-recorded it. I think it's perfectly fitting for that particular reading and this particular message today. So we're going to listen to Jeff. Following that, Reverend Elizabeth has her talk, which is titled, Why Myth Matters. I hope you enjoy both, and we'll see you right back here shortly.
Anyone ever tell you you were less than whole? of time turns, and ages come and pass, leaving memories that become legends. Legends fade to myth, and even myth is long forgotten when the age that gave it birth comes again. In one age, called the third age by some, an age yet to come, an age long past, a wind rose above the great mountainous island of Tremalking. The wind was not the beginning. There are neither endings nor beginnings to the wheel of time, but it was a beginning. This quote is from Robert Jordan in A Path of Daggers. It's a story's epic beginning. And it seems that one of the things that human beings want most of all is a story with a good beginning. It might literally be in the beginning. It might be once upon a time. It might be in a galaxy far, far away. It might be something quite different. Yet the reality is that we are doomed to always be born in the middle of a much larger story. We never find out the ultimate ending to much of anything. In real life, almost no one just lives happily ever after. So we make up stories, satisfying our imaginations, telling us that all this striving might lead to satisfaction, that someday we might just be done, that there's a real ending to any story. This might be the greatest myth of all. The Torah begins, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, or in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth. Terry Pratchett frames it, in the beginning, there was nothing, which exploded. Another story of loss and love tells us that once there was a velveteen rabbit. If you've read any one of these books, you know the power of a story with a good beginning. Whatever there was, whatever has come into existence through stories great and small, though, we always want to know what happens next. And then what happens after that? And after that. And then the story is complete. And we wait for sequels because we want to know what happens next. This is the thing with stories. They are powerful. They empower us. They give meaning and direction to our lives. But there is a difference between a time-bound story, a specific one that fits a specific moment in human history, and one which lives far on beyond the time it was created, a myth, turning, as Robert Jordan wrote, from memories to legend, to myth in that cycle of remembrance. And that difference, I believe, is often that there is complexity hidden in a simplicity that seems forever good. A story which lives on must have meanings that are easy enough for a child to read, but also interesting and complex enough for an adult to come back to again and again. As one example, think of this story, which is often attributed to the Rabbi Chaim of Ramshishak. The rabbi says that one day an inquisitive seeker went to God, saying, God, I would like to know what heaven and hell are like. So God made 2 doors appear in the air, and inside of the first one, looking through, the seeker saw in the middle of the room a large round table with a large pot of vegetable stew, infinite, delicious, thick and savory. Yet the people sitting all around the table were thin, sickly. They appeared famished. They were holding spoons with such long handles that each found it possible to reach into the center of the pot of stew to take a spoonful. But with a handle longer than their arms, they could never get the spoon back into their mouths. And the man shuddered at the sight of their misery and their suffering. God said, "Here you have seen hell." And God opened the second door. The seeker looked in, and the room appeared exactly the same. A large round table, a large pot of that delicious, wonderful vegetable stew. It made the seeker's mouth water. And the people had just the same long-handled spoons, yet they were well nourished. They were plump and laughing and talking. And when the door closed, the seeker had much to think about. Perhaps you can draw out this meaning for yourself. Find the riddle in it. For a child, I would say this is a parable about sharing. You learn to share, dear child. You learn in kindergarten or even preschool. All those people with all their long spoons, if they use their spoons to give to one another, and they are fed in return, then all shall have enough in trust and care. For an older person, it's not a simple story, I give you one bite and you give me one, we'll work it out, just like we work out who gets to play with which shovels in the sandbox. This is a story that goes to the heart of our own religious faith. How do we build trust? How are we in covenant? What kinds of independence are toxic? What kinds of interdependence are necessary in the building of a community? How much of the creation of heaven or hell on this earth is because of God or of fate? How much is contained in our own choices, our responses, and our willingness to ask for help? This story contains a simplicity. It is an easy moral tale, but also hidden depths. And this, the presence of both, creates that enduring myth, a wisdom tale, or a parable. This is what we seek. These are the stories that matter. I would be willing to bet that every single one of you in this room can think of a few stories that you have read that have caught you, that will not let you go. For me, it is Madeline Illingle's book, A Wrinkle in Time, or Starhawk, The Fifth Sacred Thing, or Octavia Butler and The Parable of the Sower. Stories that tell me community is possible, that trust leads to such creativity that the world, the universe, can be recreated, and that tell me that every one of us has the power to change the whole world in little ways that are infinitely important. These are the stories that endure. I encourage you to think, what are yours? Your core stories, your myths. One that thousands of people hold on to is the one that says, in the beginning, when the universe was created and there was nothing, God moved upon the face of the waters. And this story that begins all that shall be in the Torah, in the Bible. It is an older Babylonian creation myth, a story of becoming, of beginnings, of choices made. Creation myths tell us what is, how it came to be, why we matter in it, and they imply that more is possible. We tell them to give direction to our lives, to offer one another a chance to be part of something larger than ourselves, a part of the great thread of all time, the wheel that ever rolls onward. In The Velveteen Rabbit, a book which I give to children when they are dedicated in the Unitarian Universalist tradition, we are told of the transforming power of love. If you've read this book, you know there is a purpose to our lives, this story says, to love and to be loved. For in loving, we become real. Our hearts open. Perhaps we become a little shabby and some of our stuffing rubs off, and it does not matter because we are transformed. It's a powerful story. Even 100 years after it was written, though the little boy in the story never knows that his beloved toy bunny has become a real rabbit, the tenderness seeps through. And we desire to love so powerfully ourselves, to imagine that there is a world in which all that we have loved is forever vibrant because of it. To go back to our reading from the Reverend Carol Sissel, words matter. There is a power in myth. It pulls our imagination because our words matter. Our welcome matters. The stories we tell us who we will become as individuals. They call to us, to our best aspirations, and they tell us what kind of community we could be. They are key to our work. What we choose to say tells us something about how we aspire to be, who we aspire to include, who we have not yet considered as a part of our future community. Yet, a story without actions to back it up is not much of a tale. We must take on our myths. We must treat them as guides for our lives. Otherwise, they become mere entertainment, just a show. They fade over time into the mist. The things we remember, though, what we translate, those shift our understanding and make our behavior different. because of the wisdom we are offered. A good myth should make our communities focus differently. They should change our priorities. Just one more story. This one's from the Bible. It's the Good Samaritan. And I know many of you have heard this one. For a man was walking down the road, and he was set upon by thieves. He was hurt, beaten, and thrown into a ditch by the side of the road. We know how this story goes. As one by one, all those people of power in society, the banker, the rabbi, the tax collector, they pass by. They look, and they do not help. And then a Samaritan comes. But here's a twist. For as Jewish theologian A.J. Levine reminds us, while we often notice the Samaritan story as a story about how hope and care comes from unexpected quarters, when we place the focus solely on the failures of the banker or the rabbi, and then focus on the surprising care of the Samaritan, we are not locating ourselves quite in the story where a Jewish listener of Jesus' time might have. The average Jewish listener in Jesus' time was not surprised by the behavior of the rabbi or the banker, because those who were following Jesus were not the people of power. This was not a story to admonish those listening. They would have said, yeah, I know a guy like that. Thinks he's so holy, but he can't be bothered to help the little guy. He's too concerned with keeping clean to get down in the mud. And very few in Jesus' community were Samaritans. These people would not have said, yes, I am the Samaritan. They would have said, yes, I am the man in the ditch. My life is difficult. Sometimes I am hurt and harmed. So this message, this story, this myth becomes complexified once again for us. For it is not a story of who we help, but of who we are willing to be helped by. It is a story of swallowing your pride and your prejudice to receive the kindness of those with whom you have differences, where you know there is no consensus on matters of doctrine. In today's world, perhaps this is the story of the anarchist in a Black Lives Matter t-shirt. Perhaps this is the story of an Appalachian person wearing a Trump hat. The message is the same. Sometimes we are split deeply, and yet let care and connection be enough to begin to bridge that gap. Sometimes you need help, and sometimes the person who is offering is not the person you would have hoped. Let it be still important that care and love exist. Those people, those outcasts, those dregs of society feeling themselves to be beaten, downtrodden, and in a ditch, They changed the world 2,000 years ago because of these kinds of stories. A really good myth is a powerful thing. A good storyteller can change the world. In all the writings of the sages, the prophets, in the storybooks of children, the writings of sci-fi and fantasy, in any and every genre, even in the wisdom of a trashy romance or two, what I have learned, what I hope you will find, is this core story. It matters that we love. Not because it makes us worthy of some next life, but because it makes us worthy of this one. And it makes us worthy of each other. To love, to build ties between ourselves, to consent to become entangled with one another, since the first molecules joined and the first strings of matter began to build at the moment of the Big Bang, becoming entwined and entangled, has been the builder of the story of all creation. The meaning isn't encapsulated in an ending. We don't read a whole story just to get to a place marker of a happily ever after or a satisfying end credits page. The story itself matters. The myths matter. Our words matter. What we can imagine is what we can become. And then we imagine more. What the myth builders and storytellers of all the eons have always known is that it's not that we want to know that there's a happily ever after. We want to know that when we get to the ending, there's another good story around the bend. So your life awaits nothing. You get to choose the myths you need for this life. It is the purpose of your existence to be you, to be loved, to love and care for everything around you, and to become so utterly entwined in the fabric of the universe, so deeply written on that page of the book of life, that death cannot cut your legacy or your spirit away. For we, Unitarian Universalists, we believe in life. We say yes to love. We are blessed by one another. We become a people who do not close the book of life thinking there is a sweet and easy and sure salvation. But whatever happens after we close our eyes a final time, we know that our lives shall spark an endless cascade of sequels. We want to build a whole library of works in which the ending is again and again a cascade of beginnings, of ever better and more wondrous stories written by the future. And so, may we live happily ever after until something else happens. Blessed be.
Thank you, Jeff, for that wonderful music, and thank you, Reverend Elizabeth. I loved your message. It reminded me of what Brene Brown said on my daily calendar, which I saw this morning. Quote unquote, when we deny our stories, they define us. When we own our stories, we get to write a brave new ending. The Friends of Florence van fans, AKA to those of us who've been around long enough, commonly known as the cancer van. Drives people back and forth to Eugene 7 days a week, 5 days a week. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, taking people over to Eugene for cancer treatment. Wonderful, wonderful group of people who are dedicated to helping. Kathy Johnson, one of our extraordinary friends at FOOF, is one of the drivers, and I think one or more of our members and friends has been a recipient of the ride. So, and it's free, nobody pays anything. So what we're asking for you, if you're listening to this, and you've been a part of that cancer van in any way, shape, or form, and you wish to help it continue, send your donation to us. You can go on the donate button, or you can send us a check payable to the cancer van or to FOOF, and we'll make sure they get it. You can mail it to P.O. Box 2502, Florence 97439. Anyway, good opportunity to check it out, and it might make you feel really good to help those who need that support going back and forth. I guess it's not really much fun driving back and forth if you're going for cancer treatment. You probably want to just sit back and relax and make new friends. The other part of our offering, and so we'll be collecting for this particular community partner this month and through June. So I want also to let you know that you all are so good about contributing to our community partners. Through your support, we raised, I think, $1,335 for food share. So I'm going to ask Tuvia, if I give you a check, maybe you'll take it over to Food Share and make a presentation to them, okay? I'll get that to you in the next couple days. So thank you, everybody. We're doing great. Also, contributions and or pledge payments to this fellowship can be handled the same way. Either the donate button or mail us a check, okay? We really appreciate your contribution to help keep our doors open, shall we say. And our doors may be open soon, right? I'm looking at Ray. Looking at it. Actually, we might be asking at the general business meeting if maybe we could open our doors to a limited capacity, maybe July 4th. So that could be really cool, okay? So as we move forward with the offering, would you please repeat after me? Divine love through me.
Divine love through me.
Blesses and multiplies all that I am.
Blesses and multiplies all that I am.
All that I give.
All that I give.
And all that I receive.
And all that I receive.
I am prosperous now.
I am prosperous now.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Good. So I invite Raymond to come back forward, and we're going to extinguish the light in our chalice as I share these words from Bruce Sourworth, titled Hungering for Meaning. In our hungering for meaning, in our aching for friendship, in our yearning for justice, in our hearts remembering of finer days, may we look deep within the mystery of things and gather our strength. May each of us proclaim, as one of God's spies, the graceful power of life and love, and so may we live in hope. Blessed be. So before we close, Reverend Elizabeth has asked that I share the following words from Eric Williams, and it's titled, All We Emerge. We all emerge from, dwell within, are transformed by, and called back to love. May your mind be humbled before this mystery. May your heart grow hopeful by it. May you be sustained by this love always. Go forth in blessing and in love, ever unfolding the stories of our lives. So I invite everybody who's here today, and you at home, if you'd like to join us, we're going to sing the peace song. Tuvi is going to lead us on guitar, and we will conclude. And remember, we've got a Zoom meeting at a Zoom gallery at 5 o'clock. Jay will be there to greet you. Let's sing the peace song.